Hello, it's good to see everybody. Happy Saturday. So, today is Saturday. It's kind of in the past the middle of July. The summer is flying by. Today in Bakersfield, it is supposed to be a high of 97 degrees Fahrenheit, and it's 91 right now. Not too bad. That's kind of cool for the summertime here. Starting tomorrow and for the next 10 days or so, it's going to be over 100. That's probably closer to our normal. But it's lovely. The sun's out. The sky's pretty. The air is clean. So it's good knitting weather, right? So let's see who's here. Caitlin signed on earlier, but she had to go. But she said, hello, everybody. And then Scott. Hi, Scott. Nina, Aline Mazuka, Rebecca, Kelly, Susan Day, Calming Waters 81. I like that. Fatima, hello, Fatima. Pat Gordon, Deborah Cassidy, Lori Jane, Elle Shadowins. That's Lucy. Hi, Lucy. Angela Childress. Hi, Angela. Mary Inman, Pat Gordon question. She has a question. I'll come back to that shortly. Thank you for putting it in all caps. It makes it so much easier for me to find. Valerie, Loanna Hendricks, Sophie, Demetria. Hello, Demetria. Deborah, Nina, Signa Wellams, Jane Hart, Luann Nelson, Francoise. Hi. Grana Boo, that's cute. Eric Joseph. So, and Jilly Lynn. Hello, everyone. I'm sure some more people will come on here shortly. Don't forget to give me a thumbs up. And if you haven't subscribed to my YouTube channel, just hit that subscribe button. That helps me. You know, YouTube puts a heavy weight on how many subscribers you have for your channel. So that's the most important thing. If you like the information you get from me, you can reward me by subscribing to my YouTube channel and then sharing with your friends so they can subscribe too. So let's go back up here and see what Pat's question was. She says, how many times can you tink back a row or two and reknit with 100% wool, asking for a friend? Many times. It depends on how rough you are on the wool, but I have tinked back and reknit 8 or 10 times and the wool is fine. If the wool starts looking like it's getting ratty, you know, kind of flaying out and stuff, then break it off and start with a new piece. And you can always spit splice. Now, you don't have to spit on it when you splice it. Splicing yarn is not hard. I have a video on my other channel. Just look up splicing yarn. You can splice any yarn. A lot of people say only non-superwash wool. I have spliced everything, including acrylic. So it just depends on how you splice it and how gingerly you treat it after it's spliced. If it's acrylic or something that doesn't grab very well, you have to be very ginger with it while you're knitting it. And once it's into the stitches, though, it will not come out. It's secure. It's just like weaving in ends on the back of your work. It produces the same thing. So you can use it a lot, in answer to your question. It looks like some other people are having some hot weather in the United States too. Hot in North Carolina, 100 degrees in Pennsylvania. Yeah, but what they say here in Bakersfield, it's a dry heat. And it is. So let's see today our humidity is only 28%. So it's 91 degrees, but only 28% humidity. So it really feels like sticking your head in an oven rather than in the shower. So that's the difference. You know, if the oven is dry, it's still hot. So how is everyone today? Now, did you notice on the cable pillow knit along that originally I had said that I would put out part 4 but I can see from everyone's progress that there are not a lot of people ready for part 4 yet. So I'm delaying it by 1 week. That gives you time to catch up. And if you haven't caught up, it's no big deal. This is not a race. It's about learning new techniques or expanding your horizons. So the only person that you're competing with is yourself. Don't compete with the other people. So it's you know, work at your own pace. I'll show you what I have so far. This is my front panel with embroidery on it. So part 4 is going to be about embroidering your knitting and about seaming. We'll learn how to seam the edges, and also about adding the I-cord edging, which I think you're going to really, really like. But this was fun. Very, very fun. And it's addicting. I left this part unfinished here because I'm going to make a video using that segment of it. The rest of it is pretty much finished. So the way that I'm thinking about it is these are the pieces that have the intarsia. I want the color weight to be about the same. So this balances. This looks pretty good. If I did less color work on here, this would look heavy. If I do more color work, then this will look heavy in relationship to this. So let me show you the back pieces that I'm working on. Of course, these are the ones with the intarsia. You've seen those. These are the ones everyone's working on right now. This piece is the same as this one, and I have worked stuff on the inside, but I've taken it all out because I'm going to use this piece for a video. But this is a little fly stitch that I'm putting around the outside. Isn't that cute? Because these two pieces don't have anything. They don't have any design or color work out here. And once you start seaming them with these pieces, this area will look empty to me. So I'm adding that little fly stitch. It's going to go around this piece as well, around the outside. So what it'll look like when you're seaming these two pieces together, see, it pulls it together better. It makes a finished off, it frames it. That's what it does, it frames it. And then I'll be doing some embroidery over this part here. On this one, I started the embroidery on the cables. And have you noticed, for anyone who's gotten to this part, how many of you gotten to this part? Has anybody gotten to this part? Have you noticed how you learn a lot more about the anatomy of a cable by doing it in color work? You start really seeing where the cable crossings are and what the stitches do. And it gives you a far better understanding of the nature of cables and how to read your knitting. This was huge for a learning process. I really think that you'll get a lot out of it if you haven't done it yet. Same here. You really get a feel for the flow of the cables and where the cable crossings are. It makes it very evident where the cable crossings are. So that's all of that. The yarn that I'm using for my color work, this is Malabrigo washed worsted, and the colorway is Diana. And I like it because, see, it has these pieces of color, but they're long enough. They're pretty short, really. It's hand painted yarn, but in the work, then it gives you these. Like here's green, here's a lot of red. And when you're doing these types of stitches, the colors really stand out as individual blips. Over here, so this has got different stitches. This is a stem stitch right here. And I have videos on all of this that will be up before next Monday. This stitch is a back stitch. It's different than a stem stitch. And you can do it every stitch or every other stitch. I did it every other stitch, and it kind of makes it look like beads. Very, very pretty. Then this is a little flower stitch, like a petal, that I put inside. And again, the color kind of groups. This is really cool for hand-painted yarn. See how the color groups into those stitches? So we get these different colors going, even on the lines. See, it showcases the colors a lot. Really, excuse me, really pretty. Now I have to tell you, this is totally addicting. Totally addicting, because when you start putting the color on here, you just, I talk to myself when I'm doing, I go, ooh, that's pretty. Ooh, I think I'll do some more. There's a fine line between enough and too much, and you'll figure it out in your own work. You do not have to do yours like mine. I'm going to give you a variety of stitches to use, and you can use whichever ones you want, and you can play around with it. You will cut out a lot. As I was playing with this and working these, I would try something and then decide I didn't like it. So you have to cut it out. So you need some little a tapestry needle, some scissors, maybe some tweezers to pull out the cut pieces. But it's kind of a trial and error, but it's well worth it and very, very rewarding. So let's see if there's any more questions on here. Let me scroll through here. And then I'll go over and I'll read the questions off of. So Calming Water says, that's beautiful, Suzanne. I don't think I'm confident enough to do cables in color, not very good at intarsia. This is a great time to try it. This is a small project, and I have all those videos that go along with it, show you exactly how to do it. Go ahead and jump in, try it. You have nothing to lose, absolutely nothing to lose, and you have skills to gain. I think that you will like it. And yes, that is embroidery. So this is embroidery on knitting. This is all common embroidery stitches. This is intarsia, but it is not hard. Not hard. Don't let it scare you. Okay? So let's go over here and look at the questions from Ravelry. This is from iMargaret73. She has 3 questions. Question 1, I'm staring at my knitting deeply. I can think of no reason why knitting in the round and knitting in the flat should have such a drastically different outcome other than me, the knitter. My in the round knitting is beautifully consistent, and I'm relearning flat knitting because it isn't. If the needle barrel is determining the stitch size in both flat and round, then I should not be able to get this. Why should I not be able to get the same gauge? That's a great question. So the answer to that is that most people, the majority of knitters, do not get the exact same gauge with their knit stitches as they do their purl stitches. This question comes up a lot in the Master Hand Knitting program and just in my general teaching classes. The first, if you have gutters in your knitting, and gutters is where there's spaces between the rows on the reverse stockinette stitch side or on the right side of stockinette stitch, it kind of looks corrugated. That means that not all the stitches are the same side. That's when you're knitting flat. The way you can tell if your knit stitches and your purl stitches are the same size is by knitting a piece flat where you knit a row, purl a row. Knit a row, purl a row, and do this for, maybe 4 or 5, 6 inches wide and 4 or 5, 6 inches long. Block it and let it rest. The second piece, what you can do is knit in the round and have enough stitches that when laying flat, it can be, 4 inches, 5 inches wide. So you'll probably want 8 or 10 stitches worth of cast on stitches, and knit in the round where it's all knits. And then bind off. Do that for several inches. Bind off, block it, let it rest. Compare the stitch gauge. Is in the round stitch gauge different than the stitch gauge for knitting flat? So this is how you can tell whether it's your knits that are bigger or your purls. If your knits are bigger, the swatch that's knitted in the round will have fewer stitches per inch. Let's say your target is 5 stitches to the inch. You're using a US 7 needle and worsted weight yarn, and you want to get 5 stitches to the inch. And you're knitting in the round. And you measure your stitch gauge, and you're getting 5 stitches to the inch. And you compare that with your flat swatch where you knitted a row, purled a row, knitted a row, purled a row. Let's say you're getting 6 stitches to the inch. What does that tell you? That tells you that your knits are larger than your purls, because in the round piece, knitting in the round, there are no purls. It's all knits. And you're getting 5 stitches to the inch. If you're getting more stitches to the inch on the piece that's worked flat, that means that your purls are tighter than your knits, and the purls are tightening the fabric up. Conversely, if on the flat piece you're getting more stitches to the inch than you are in the knitted in the round, that means that your pearls are larger than your knits. Because in the flat, you have pearls. You have half knits, half pearls. So if the gauge is larger, if you're getting fewer stitches to the inch, let's say you're getting 4.5 stitches to the inch, and over here where you have all knits, you're getting 5. That means your pearls are bigger and they're contributing to the overall stitch gauge of the fabric. So I did a test. Well, actually, I'll tell you, I've typed all this out on Ravelry the other day, but I'll tell you here in case you aren't all over there and have read that. But I used to have gutters in my knitting, and I'm a continental knitter. That means I hold the yarn in my left hand. I did a lot of research, and everywhere that I read, it said that if your stitch gauge is uneven, most likely your pearls are bigger than your knits. So I would try tightening up my pearls, right? And that problem just persisted. In fact, it looked worse. And everywhere I went and everywhere I stayed and all the people I talked to, they said, no, the pearls are always the problem. The pearls are too big. So I worked on it. Finally, I started looking for people who knit the way that I knit, that knit continental. And you know, most people in the United States are throwers. The continentals, we're the minority. So it's not easy to find other continental knitters. And when I do, it's like, oh, cool, a continental knitter, yay! So I would watch them knit. And I finally resorted to going to YouTube and looking for videos of people who knit continental and see how do they knit, what are they doing? And what I found was that my knits were bigger, not my pearls, but my knits. And what was happening is when I was knitting, I was using my finger to push the yarn around the needle as I knitted onto from the left to the right. I would push the yarn around. And when I pushed that yarn, it gave a little bit of extra yarn into each stitch, and therefore my knits were bigger. I found a video on Craft Sanity. If you Google continental knitting craft sanity, you'll see the video come up. It's because a child's drawing of a face, like a crayon colored face at the beginning of the video. That's the one that I watched that was the big light coming on for me, that I was putting that extra yarn into my knits and that my knits were the problem, not my pearls. My pearls were fine. My knits were too big. Once I stopped pushing the yarn around the needle, my knits went to the size they should have been, and my gauge looked great. But that's not an easy solution. It was easy to find it out, but to make myself stop pushing the yarn around, that was not easy, you know, because when you're knitting and you're just knitting and you're relaxed, your hands do it without thinking, right? If you have to think about how you create the stitches, it's exhausting. So I would have to sit there and watch and make sure that I wasn't pushing the yarn around, that I was picking it off my finger instead of pushing. I was picking instead of pushing. It took me about a year to get that into my muscle memory. That's the muscle memory of pushing the yarn was so strong that it took a year of just practicing so that I don't push the yarn around and I pick it off my finger instead. And I had to consciously think about my knitting, which was exhausting. But now it just happens. I don't have to worry about it so much more. So when you have uneven stitches, and you'll see this a lot. In fact, once you are aware of this problem, go on Ravelry or wherever you want to go and look at people's knitting projects where part of the project is knit in the round and part is knit flat. A good place to check is, let's say you're doing a sweater that's in pieces, okay? Or it's a cardigan with the opening in the front. So the top is knit back and forth, like this, okay? And you come down to the sleeve, you put the sleeve on waist yarn and you continue the body, and then you come back and you're going to knit the sleeve in the round. Look at this area on sweaters. This is where you'll see the change. You'll see that there's a line. There's actually a line where the gauge changes from knitting flat to knitting in the round. And that person just is not aware of it. They haven't seen it yet. Once you see it, you can't stop see it. You can't unsee it. Once you start becoming aware of this issue, you will see it in a lot of knitting. Another place where it happens is it's something that is knit, and then the body is knit in the round. This is maybe knit flat or back and forth. It's knit in the round, up, bottom up. Divide for the armholes in the front and the back are knit individually. And then the sleeves are added. You'll see a line right here from where it's knit into the round to where the knitting flat starts. And that's where the gauge changes. That was a big answer to that question. Okay, this is her second question. I'm Margaret 73. I'm really looking forward to any parts of your knitting bootcamp. I love your videos that address technique and the physics of what the yarn is actually doing. When will bootcamp be available here? I'm still working on it. I'm hoping to have it done in the next couple of weeks. That's my goal. But you know what? I'm my own boss, and I can make executive decisions here for myself. And sometimes they involve delays because, I do this for fun. And if it starts causing me stress, then that means I need to take a little break, step back, and slow down a little bit. So I work at my own pace. You will get the best information from me if I work at my own pace. So that's what I'm doing. But my goal is to have it done within the next couple of weeks. So we'll see if I meet my goal or not. Her third question is, are there any other stitch pattern swatches like seed stitch that I can do to hone in my issues? The two swatches that I suggest people do to hone in their stitches is seed stitch, like a seed stitch scarf, or knit 2, purl 2 scarf, because you do equal knits and purls, and you have all those opportunities to change from a knit to a purl when you want to tighten up the yarn between the knit and the purl. And I have that video on, I don't know what it's called. We'll put a link down below, but it's about tightening between the knits, enlarged knits before purls. If you have that problem of enlarged knits before purls, and you'll see it, like if you're doing a cable swatch, you'll see it on the left side of the cable, where you knit the cable, and then you do that purl stitch on the edge of the cable when you change from a knit to a purl. If you have this problem, you'll see an enlarged column of knits just before the purl ditch on the left side. Or in ribbing, it'll be the column of knits before the column of purls. That column of knits will be enlarged. So that I have a video. It's excellent on how to correct that problem. It's called Enlarged Knits Before Purls, and you can learn how to fix that. Okay, let's go to the next question. This is Moon Rocker. She had asked a question last week and I missed it, so she asked it again. She says, I see that the chart states that long tail cast on is always assumed. This is in the cable pillow tutorial. Apart from, Suzanne says, what are its advantages over, say, a thumb cast on, which I've always used, and how to decide which one to use when? Asked with respect. If, according to knitting pattern standards for writing knitting patterns, it is assumed that when someone says to cast on so many stitches, that they intend for you to use a long tail cast on unless otherwise stated. Now, this is a rule that mostly applied to knitting publications, magazines, books, where designers had their work edited by tech editors prior to publication. In this day and age, with Ravelry and other social media places where people can release patterns, they sell indie designers and stuff, they just release patterns. Some people do not know what the standards are, and so they assume that their knowledge is the standard. And so you get a lot of variations, a lot of variations in how patterns are written. If you go to the Craft Yarn Council website, you can see the standards for knitting. And in there is even how to write a pattern. And they show also how to cast on. And the cast on that they show is the long tail cast on. So that's why it's the standard. It's the default cast on. Now, why? It has good structure. It has an edge. A backward thumb cast on or E cast on has no structure to it. It's very, very stretchy. And it does not provide structure to your fabric. It's really good in some cases. It has its uses, yes. For example, if you're casting on stitches for underarm or the underarm for a sleeve, that's a really good cast on to use. But let's say you were casting on stitches for a buttonhole, for a one-row buttonhole, that's not a good cast on to use because it's too stretchy and your buttonhole will stretch all out of shape after you use it one time. So each cast on has its purposes. There are a couple of really good books, and let me show them to you. This one and this one. Both of these are good. You don't necessarily need both of them, but either one of them is really good. It's called Cast On and Bind Off. And both of these books, when they show you the cast on, they also tell you why you would want to use it, its pros and cons. So there are lots of different cast-ons. Here's a twined cast-on. It's a fancy two-color cast-on, but characteristics and what it's good for. And so that book tells you the pros and cons. This one is called Cast On Bind Off by Leslie Ann Bestor. It's a spiral bound, so it lays flat, which is very convenient. It also is smaller, so it fits in your knitting bag. This one is also spiral bound. It's called Cast On Bind Off, and this one is by Cap Sease, S-E-A-S-E, and she does the same thing. She tells the pros and cons, why you would want to use it, what it's good for, how to do it. One further book that you may want to have for basic knitting knowledge is, whoopsies, go down here, called Reader's Digest Knitter's Handbook by Montse Stanley. This is the knitting Bible. And it's not just cast-ons and bind-offs, it's about everything. But in the section on cast-ons and bind-offs, same thing. She tells why you would want to use it and what it's good for. When would you want to use it? In fact, at the beginning of each section on cast-ons and bind-offs, where she breaks them into categories, she lists them all. And in that list, she tells you which ones are good for what. Choosing a cast-on. This is on page 64. Choosing a cast-on. Ordinary edges, two-strand, twisted two-strand cable, Peruvian buttonholes, crochet edgings, decorative edges, ends of rows. All these different cast-ons and why you would use them. So a lot of people learn to cast on by whoever taught them to knit. And that is the cast on that they use for absolutely everything their entire life. I've met people who were taught the knitted cast on because it's easy to teach. That's probably the easiest cast on to teach people is the knitted cast on. And so the rest of their life, they use the knitted cast on for absolutely everything. This is part of becoming a master knitter, is you learn all the different cast-ons and bind-offs, and you learn which ones you would want to use where. For example, I talked about the buttonhole, the one-row buttonhole. You wouldn't want to use the thumb cast-on or backward loop cast-on for the buttonhole because it's too stretchy. A cable cast-on is perfect for that. And the cable cast-on and the knitted cast-on are worked very similarly, but the cable cast-on is much tighter. It gives you a non-stretchy cast-on. It's perfect for buttonholes, but it would not be good under the arm. It would give you a constricted area in the fabric under the arm that should be stretchy with the rest of the surrounding fabric. So there you go about cast-ons and bind-offs. Let's go to the next question. So that's why I chose the long tail cast on for the pillow, is because we're going to be seaming these edges, and we want to have a sturdy edge because this is going to be the structure of the outside of the pillow. This is from Miss Nook Chili. Blocking question. I was fascinated by your comments about how, although we block to size, the fabric will return to its natural state size eventually. So my question is, should we ever stretch our knitting when blocking, other than lace, of course, or should we just pat it into place and shape without stretching, pinning down edges that need to lie flat for seaming? Yes, do not stretch your wool when it's wet. Don't stretch it to the size that you want it to be. You have to let it be the size that it wants to be, not what you want it to be, because it will go back to its size no matter what you do with it. Have you ever knitted a lace shawl out of superwash wool and stretch it out to open all the lace while it's wet, and you release it and it stays that shape for a little while, but slowly it gets back down to the smaller size, but it's open looking because the lace has been opened up because of the blocking. It's important to stretch lace. Some laces, depends on the lace you're doing, when it's wet, to open up the eyelets so that you can actually see the lace. So I hope for you, those people who are actually doing the cable pillow tutorial, that's one of the things that you're learning from this is by stretching it. I had everybody stretch their swatches. I had you knit it to be 6 inches, but stretch it to be 7 inches, actually 6 inches plus 2 stitches. Stretch it to be 7 inches, and everybody's coming back to like 6.5 stitches, or the majority of you are who are getting gauge. That's what I'm wanting you to learn from this. Also, that about blocking cables, and that's the next 2 questions from now about blocking cables. I'll talk more about that in a second. So hold on. I got things to say about that too. This is from Becky Sinkolnitz. She says, question, I'm thinking about making the tucker sweater, but many of the finished projects have a noticeably different texture in the knitted fabric in the body portion and the yoke portion. Do you think this could be corrected with changing needle size in the yoke? Thanks. And so I went to the tucker sweater and I looked at a lot of the projects, and I see what she is talking about. And I think that this can be corrected by changing needle size or just being aware that it is a problem. I see a lot of them that have what's happening in the yoke is that there is a cable design that goes around it, and that cable is pulling the fabric in, and then people are switching to the body below the yoke, and there are puckers all the way around that. And it could be just a problem of the gauge, stitch gauge compensation between the yoke design and the body that is plain. So in this case, you would do some swatching. You would swatch the yoke design on a smaller piece in the round, because it looks like it's knitted in the round. You would swatch that and check your stitch gauge, and then you would also swatch just plain stockinette in the round, check your stitch gauge. If there's a discrepancy, yes, you need to change needle sizes, and you'll need to swatch again until you get the right needle size, so that then your fabric stays consistent when you change from the yoke to the body of the sweater. All right. Okay, let me go back to the questions. That was a good question. This is from Sherry C. And Sherry has submitted her level 3 for evaluation. Yay. So we're waiting. She's waiting. I'm waiting with her to see the results. Her sweater, I got a sneak peek, is gorgeous. So her question. When blocking cables, are there times that you stretch the fabric and times when you do not, like not stretching ribbing? I am surprised by the directions to stretch the cables to the 7-inch square. When I blocked panel 1, I didn't see the directions to stretch. My assumption was that stretching would flatten the cable and would be undesirable. After panel 2, I had seen the directions to stretch to 7 inches, did so, and reblocked panel 1. I was surprised to see how the cables jumped up from the background. They are drying now, and I'll be anxious to see how they look when they relax. Thanks, Suzanne. Well, this goes back to that enlarged knit before the purl. If you can fix that problem, if you have enlarged knits before the purl on the left side of your cable, when you block it, if you stretch it, it flattens the cable out and it makes it flat with the fabric and it doesn't look very good. But if you can fix that problem so that left-hand knit column in your cables, ribbing, or whatever you're working on when you change from a knit to a purl, if you can fix that problem so that knit stitch is a smaller size like it should be, like its neighbors, when you pull on the fabric, it actually makes the cables pop out from the fabric. It looks really cool. So it has to do with that situation of the knit, the enlarged knit followed by the purl. And so watch that video because I explain it and how to fix it, how to assess it, and how to fix it. Okay, she has one more question. She says, question, which Viking cruise are you taking in August? Which Viking river cruise? We're taking the Viking ocean cruise on one of their small ships, and we're doing the Baltic. So we're starting in, we're going to Oslo for 3 days. Then we take the train from Oslo over to Bergen. And then we get on the ship in Bergen and we go the whole Baltic and come back to Stockholm, spend a couple extra days in Stockholm, and then we'll fly home. And that's happening real soon. In fact, while I'm speaking about that, I'm going to be on vacation the month of August. So there won't be any Saturday live streams during August. And I will check into the Facebook group and the Ravelry group periodically as I have Wi-Fi, but there probably won't be any long posts from me. So I will be more silent than I usually am, but I'll catch up when I get home. And speaking of catching up, you know, I had that sock pattern that I released on Ravelry the other day, the undulant sock, for free for 1 day. Almost 10,000 people downloaded it in that 1 day. Can you believe that? So I got a gazillion emails from people in Ravelry, private messages, thanking me for the sock pattern and this and that and the other. So I'm like 200 emails behind in Ravelry. So if you have emailed me something, sent me a text, private message in Ravelry, and I haven't responded, it's because I'm way behind. I will get to those eventually, hopefully, maybe over the weekend. I don't know. I do them a little batch at a time. So there you go. So now we're caught up on those Ravelry. Let me see if there's any other questions over here. And don't forget to give me a thumbs up. There's 84 people on here right now and 42 thumbs up. Now, I know that some people don't, they just watch YouTube and they can't respond because they have never signed into YouTube or they don't have a Google account. You know, in order to participate in the YouTube videos, you actually have to have a Google account. I think for me, I have to have a Google account. Google owns YouTube. So in order for you to put questions on or thumbs up, I'm sure you probably have to have an account, but somebody can correct me if not. Now, it may be that I need to have more people on here who are monitors. If anybody would like to be, that kind of protects us from the spammers. If you would like to be a monitor, the monitor's names show up in blue over there. So right now, Jane Hart and Diana Danko are monitors on here. If anybody would like to volunteer, Angela, would you like to volunteer to be a monitor? I'm making you a monitor. You're a moderator. Angela, you just became a moderator. Does anybody else want to be a moderator? I think we need some extra moderators. If you want to be a moderator, let me know. And I will turn you into a moderator. So let me go through here and see if there's any more questions that I missed. And I can hardly wait to see what you guys do with this pillow top. It's just so fun. Pat Gordon says, I jumped in and used cables on my iTag cardigan. I learned so much. It has helped with this pillow knit along. And speaking of that, in the fall, I'm going to do another sweater knit along. It's going to be drop shoulder, knit in pieces. So it'll be, if you're doing a pullover, it'll be 4 pieces, a front, back, and 2 sleeves. If you're knitting a cardigan, it'll be 5 pieces, right front, left front, back, and 2 sleeves. Knit from the bottom up, with or without saddles. and you'll be able to do it in any kind of a stitch pattern that you want, but it's a great opportunity to use cables or any other kind of stitch pattern. So this cable pillow tutorial is a great starting place if you haven't had a lot of experience with cables, if you want to use cables on that sweater. This is a great place to start, and you'll feel much more comfortable. And you can even add the intarsia and the embroidery to your sweater. Speaking of that, so this is the one I did last fall when I taught it locally. This is the back of my sweater. You see the embroidery I did on it? Let me put it on. So this is the same thing that we're going to do. This is a drop shoulder sweater, knit from the bottom up in pieces and seam together. So you can see the seam here. And this is in the Aran style that I embroidered my cables. So you could do this if you want. And especially after embroidering this pillow top, you'll feel much more comfortable embroidering your sweater. And it's really fun. And it, like I said before, it is addicting because it's so pretty. Okay, let's see. Okay. I don't see any other questions. Andy says question, but I don't see a question. Uh-oh. Did I freeze up on people? I hope I unfroze. Okay. Angela Childress calming. The long tail cast on is also known as the slingshot cast on. But if you look it up in books, Angela, let me look up slingshot cast on in here. That might be more of a slang term for it. Nope, slingshot cast on 25 and 27. Let's see what she shows. Yeah, it's the long tail cast on, aka continental double 2-strand slingshot. Yeah, you're right. Good point. Excellent. Okay. Vogue knitting, let's see, the Vogue knitting, it is this book. This is also a really good book to have in your library. The Ultimate Knitting Book. Now, Vogue Knitting has 2 big books that look kind of like this. One just is like a compilation of all their best patterns over the years. That's not the one. This is the one about knitting. It's how to knit. And it's kind of like the Montse Stanley book. You know, it shows lots of pictures, how to make the stitches, the whys and wherefores. It's also very good. My go-to is Montse Stanley. The main reason it's my go-to is that she is concise. I'm a person who likes the information in the least amount of words needed to give it, in the clearest form. That's Montse Stanley. She doesn't use very many words. She's very direct, right to the point. That's kind of how I make my videos. My tutorials over on the other channel, Knitting with Suzanne Bryan, are all very to the point. I don't chit-chat. I don't talk about the weather or my cat or my dog or anything else. I just go directly to what it is that you're trying to learn in that video. And that's the kind of books I like. That's why I like Montse Stanley. Oh, the Vogue Knitting book is really, really good, and I've used it a lot. Okay. Let's see. Still working on it. So what do moderators do? Sherry Cornick, what do moderators do? Sherry, sometimes, you know, because this is a public open live stream right now, there are people who troll on YouTube just looking for what's on right now, and they come in and they make outlandish comments or statements, sometimes vulgar, and you, as a moderator, you can boot them out. So you would just be watching to see if somebody posts something that does not seem to fit with the context of what we're talking about, and look at it. Most likely it's a spammer, and you can boot them out. So if you're interested, let me know, and I will make you a moderator. The more moderators we have, the more eyes we have on it, and the less likely we'll be interrupted by those people. And I appreciate all the moderators. Thank you very much. Okay, so Judith Lausch, you want to be a moderator? Okay, moderator. Judith, thank you, thank you. Angela Childress, she says, question, is there a book we need to purchase or put on our wish list to prepare for the fall knit along? If you want to do cables in your sweater, any cable stitch dictionary would be fine. There's lots of them. You might even want to get more than one. There's some fun, interesting ones. Let me show you a couple. Have you ever heard of the Harmony Guides? They're no longer, well, they're no longer in publication. Okay, they look like this. It always says the Harmony Guides across the top, and there's a bunch of them. They were published over quite a few years, although they're no longer in publication. The original Harmony Guides are no longer in publication. And I have 7 knitting volumes, and there's 6 crochet volumes. There's one of the Harmony Guides that is, this one's really cool, and it's 220 Aran stitches. So it's all cables. This one's really cool. And it has in the back, I think this one does. Nope, this one does not. How to knit a sweater. Let's see. Yep. Traditional garment design down here on the bottom. But this one is with set-in sleeves. We're going to be doing drop shoulder. Let's see. There's another one for the Aran. Whoops, get this back in here without damaging it. Let's see. The first one, volume 1, the Harmony Guide to Knitting Stitches. One of these, oh, it's the one on how to knit that has directions for doing a garment. And I'm not finding it right here off the top of my head, so we can talk about that some other time. But those are cool stitch dictionaries. There's the Japanese knitting stitches. This one, the Japanese Stitch Knitting Bible, wherever it is. It's out of my bookcase right now. That one's really good. It has a lot of really cool cables in it. Before you buy one, I would just, look at all of them, ask other people which cable stitch dictionaries they like. There's also that Nora Gone book that she just came out with, I've shown before. It's also a good stitch. And Barbara Walker's. So there's a lot of stitch dictionaries. Oftentimes you can get them used on Amazon. Knitting books, unless they're collectible, I often just buy them used because you can get them for really inexpensive. Okay. Let's see. Fatima, question. Could you please refer again the video about special tips of knitting? It's called Enlarged Knit Before Purl. Let me look. Let me go over to here, pull up my YouTube channel, and I'll tell you the exact name. I'm pretty sure that's it. Come on. Okay. Let's see. Enlarged Knit Before Purl. It's called Enlarged Knit Before Purl. And I show with seed stitch, a cable, and ribbing how you can identify the problem and how to fix it. Pat Gordon, question, will we learn more about Aran style? And yes, I'm going to teach you about Aran style of knitting. The traditional Aran sweaters were knit flat. And I'll teach you a little bit about the history of Aran sweaters. They're not that old. And how you put the cables together in a pleasing way. Yes, I will be teaching. And you're going to make a sweater from scratch, based upon your measurements and your stitch gauge. And you can combine any cables you want together. I'll teach you how to pick them, and it does involve swatching. I'll warn you right now that you are going to be swatching every single cable that you pick, because each cable will have its own stitch gauge. And in order for you to fit it into a piece of fabric that will fit your body, you need to know the stitch gauge of each cable. So you'll be learning a lot more about stitch equivalency between the cable stitch patterns and your stockinette or reverse stockinette stitch pattern. You'll create your own sweater. Tracy Miller, question. I am knitting stripes and I've seen your video which shows you drop the old yarn in front. Most people show it the other way. Which way should I pull the yarn up on the wrong side? When I do, are you talking about one row stripes? One row stripes in the round? If you're doing one row stripes in the round, you drop the just used yarn over the top of the next yarn, and you pick the next yarn up from underneath so that they do not cross. You do not want them to cross, and that creates a helix stripe. So there's no beginning or end to your stripes. I think that's what you're asking. Carol Brasino, question. You mentioned that you prefer to knit socks with 2 circs. I'm comfortable with DPNs. In your sock pattern, how do I convert to 2 circs to DPNs? In the sock pattern, there are 30, for the smaller, the medium size, there's 30 stitches on the front circular needle, 30 stitches on the back. You can divide it 15, 15, 15, and 15, and it should work just fine. Okay? Calming Waters. She says she'll be a moderator. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Sherry Corn, I'd like to be a moderator. Thank you, Sherry. The more the merrier, because you're not always all on here at the same time. And Deborah, thank you. I really appreciate that. And Fatima. And when somebody gets on here and sees all these moderators, they're going to go away real quick. You guys are so awesome. We are a team, right? Okay, Angela, I just purchased Deborah Newton's cable collection book, and she has some interesting cables. Yes, cool. And it's fun to try some that you don't see ordinarily, because you don't want your sweater to look like everybody else's sweater, right? You want it to be original. Emily Beaton, question, what about Ann Budd's bottom-up book? You can use that as a resource, yes, but it is not absolutely necessary. For the drop shoulder cardigan or pullover, we do not need Ann Budd's book. Now, the sweater we're going to do after that is going to be bottom up in pieces, seamed, but with set-in sleeves. We will absolutely need Ann Budd's book for that sweater. Okay, that's going to be the last one that I'll do. That will be 4. In fact, I'm thinking that after I'm going to turn 70 next January. When I turn 70, I think I'm not going to teach in-person knitting classes anymore. I'm just going to do the online ones. So my nighttime stuff that I teach here locally, I think that I'll cut back on that quite a bit. I teach a lot, but it gives me a good solid experience so I can help everybody. Okay. Alice Starmer also has books on Aran knitting and on Celtic knitting with great cable patterns. Yes, I love Alice Starmer. Her cable knitting books are right down here somewhere. Oh, here's the Harmony Guides. This is the one, Aran and Farrell Knitting. This is the other one that I was looking for. This is an awesome book. This one has extensive information on designing a sweater and how to put the panels together in pleasing manners. This is a awesome, see the things here? You can tell when I like a book when it has a lot of stickies. See, it's got a bunch of stickies in the top. It's a very cool book. Between the two harmony guides on Aran knitting, this is the one I like the best. And then Alice Starmore, she has the fisherman sweaters, which have cables. Fisherman sweaters are different than Aran sweaters. They're knit in the round. And for Aran sweaters, where's the Aran book? I must have it out somewhere, so it's not here. Okay, but you got the idea. Okay. Margot, hello, Margot. Since Margot's on here, I have to tell you that without the moderators on here, the moderators, Angela and Margot, are now the moderators on my Facebook group. Margot is my administrator. Angela has agreed to help out and become a moderator to help Margot, and we really, really appreciate that, Angela. Thank you so much. Without Margot, my Facebook group would not be happening. I cannot be on there all the time, and she alerts me if there's something I need to see. I try to check it several times a day, but she's on top of it, and she and I think so much alike, and we agree on how we want the group to run. So I have complete faith in her. And it takes a lot of stress off my shoulders of worrying that I'm not on top of it. Same thing over in my Ravelry group. I have Dolise over there and Demetria. And Dolise is kind of the lead person, and Demetria is extraordinarily knowledgeable about knitting. And without these ladies helping out, I could not do what I do. So I appreciate all of them so much. And then I have all the people that translate for me. Francoise has translated all of the new things that I've done into French. Yay, thank you. And I have several people volunteering to translate into other languages. Fatima just translated into Portuguese for me, the sock pattern. And it's so exciting and really kind of fun because we do have a worldwide community here. So I just want to say thank you to all of you. Thank you. Okay, let me see if there's any more questions. And Margot says, yes, it takes a village. It does. It takes a village to do all of this. And it's all for fun. This is for fun. It's not for stress. So if things are causing you stress, let us know. We can slow down the pace or answer more questions if you need to have your questions answered. And I'll restate things however many times it takes until you understand it. I'll try to use different language because sometimes maybe you don't understand because of the words that I'm using. That's why when I teach, I use 3 formats. I use written, videos, and the question and answer, because everybody learns differently. Some people learn best by seeing, some people learn best by hearing, some people learn best by reading. So I try to come from all those different formats, and I will answer your questions over and over and over. It does not bother me to answer them more than once. I will not get mad at you, although sometimes I felt like whacking somebody with a wet noodle, but it doesn't happen very often. So how is everybody? Is this good? Have we covered enough information for today? Okay. I'll give you a chance, see if there's any remaining questions. I'm going to work. Actually, I'm going to take a nap. I'm going to take a nap now. And then I'm going to work on my pillow top. And I'm going to work on some more videos and get it written up. Be sure to share these live streams with your friends. They don't have to watch them live. They can watch it later on, and they can still read all the comments here. They're all still available. They don't go anywhere. Yes, siesta, yes. Okay, I'll let you all go. Happy knitting. Have a good evening, the rest of the afternoon, and we'll see you here next Saturday, same time, same place. Happy knitting. Bye-bye.